At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of Friday Night Debate on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Friday Night Debate, we're going to be looking at the legacy of President George Weah. That's the 6-year rule. What legacy? What can he be remembered for? And we're going to juxtapose that with what do we expect? Or we call it the legacy of George Weah and the prospect of the president-elect. For anything that you think is the legacy of George Weah, we want to predict how will President-elect Joseph Numa Boakai do after 6 years. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight, the legacy of President George Weah and the prospect of President-elect Joseph Numa Boakai. Let me welcome Mr. Victor Nabe, who is joining us all the way from West Africa. Welcome, Victor. Oh. You've been dogged by the internet bug?
Data is harmonized.
All right. While Victor is getting set, let me welcome Mr. Elvis Morris. Mr. Morris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Jah. It's always a pleasure being on.
Also, let me welcome our political analyst, Mr. Mohammed Sharif, who is a product of Waplo Institute in Kilipo, Kanwike. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's always good to be here.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If you have not done so already, please share the show, invite someone, and let's get started. So we're going to be talking about the legacy of President George Weah. What will President Weah be remembered for as he leaves office, let's say, this month or next month? What will he be remembered for? And let me guide the discussion, right? When President Weah came to power, there were challenges, obvious challenges. Every president having challenges. There was a country that he inherited, so there were expectations. How did he do at that front, meeting those expectations based on the challenges and the kind of country that he inherited? Also, economic reforms. How did he do? What's the legacy when it comes to economic reform? Education and healthcare, anti-corruption efforts, infrastructure development, social initiatives, like let's say rural housing and all that. Those are the kind of social initiatives I'm talking about. Then peace and security. How did he do? Then not just that, but if you look at how he did, whatever his legacy is in that area, what you make of how Boakai is going to do. Let me start with you, Mr. Morris. When we say the legacy of George Weah, what is the first thing that jumped out of your mind?
I mean, I would say roads. This is the biggest thing that the CDC government has touted, as the biggest accomplishment in terms of connecting roads in the country. But from my own analysis and my own observation, I would say peace, not security, but peace. Prior to the elections, in 2023, there were little scrimmages, but particularly, at election time, whether it was 2020 elections and the 2023 elections and so on. But overall, the country was quite peaceful, but it wasn't as secure as we would, as we hoped. We had a lot of deaths, unexplained deaths. We had, some rise in crime, and the quote unquote disadvantaged youth has been, and drugs and other things. So I think his legacy, primarily, when people are trying to think fondly of him, would be, well, he did a lot of roads, build, a lot of roads here and there. He did the free, tuition and the free fees. But those things can be taken away. Those are not something that's written in stone. The next government can come and change that. But one of the things that I would say that I would, remember George Weah for is conceding the election, being a true Democrat. Whether or not he plans on running for political office again, I would say being a Democrat. Not rigging any elections, not showing any dictatorial tendencies like most people were ascribing to him, saying that he's a dictator, but in fact his action proved otherwise. Whether it was in the 2005 or 2006 elections when he lost, or 2011, nobody went in the street to fight war. He didn't encourage any form of violence. Always been a Democrat. His biggest flaw, I think, was his lack of engagement with the people of Liberia. I would give President Weah some free advice. I've been thinking about this. A lot of people know I supported him and I like him. I think 6 years is a long time. If you have any intentions of coming back into political office, take that time and invest in yourself. There are schools, there are consultants who you can hire, and they will teach you how to speak, how to project, how to improve your speaking skills. I think that's something that you lack and you need to improve on it. And then another thing is when you're a leader of a country, there's different styles of leadership, but one of the best styles of leadership is leading from the front. You have to be able to set examples and allow those who are behind you, your lieutenants, to follow your example, your positive, examples. I think you really had leadership deficiency when it came to being, somebody who took the initiative and engaged the people and spoke to them what was on your mind. So I think a lot of people will look at you as a quote unquote bubble president, which is a bit harsh, but I think it's fair because you didn't speak to the country as much as we wish. And that I'm sure it's not because you didn't want to, but I think you feel maybe you're limited in terms of your speaking skills or your communication skills. But that's not something that you should hang your head on because you can improve it. Take the 6 years if you plan on running for office, improve those skills, sharpen your communication skills, sharpen your leadership skills overall. You have good intentions, but your leadership skills were lacking in terms of engaging the people and giving directions to your lieutenants. But overall, I think the educational system, he made some positive impacts by making some things free, but not a lot of resources went into it to improve the overall educational sector. I think the health sector was terrible. He didn't really do a good job on the health sector.
We'll go each one at a time. I just want to quickly what jumped out of you.
Yeah, I'll just leave it there. I think I've taken a lot of time over.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif.
Yes.
Anytime you hear the legacy of Weah, what's the first thing that jumps out of you?
First thing I'm going to remember is his one of his final acts, which was his conceding the race at a time that many didn't expect, and so he conceded. And his concession speech, it's was a wonderful one. He was very magnanimous as the head of state and the commander in chief, and the way he went about doing that. And so he will be remembered for such a thing. He will also be remembered for his movement towards. I will hope that he is remembered. Liberians may have a short memory on this, but I will hope that he will be remembered, that he is remembered for his move towards shortening the presidential term of office. This is ridiculous. 6 years is ridiculous. 9 years for senators is ridiculous. 6 years for the members of the House of Representatives is ridiculous. So he made a move in that direction. And some would say that this started under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Well, I don't care where it started, but he made, he had 6 years and he made a move. Those who had 12 years did not make that move. And so he made those moves. And so I will hope that history will be fair to him in that direction. Having said that, though, George Weah will be remembered for what a missed opportunity. What a opportunity he had. He was given this country, to run the country in which he grew up, the country that he played for, in which he is a celebrity, still is a celebrity. He was the Liberian people overwhelmingly voted for him. In at least two successive elections, the Liberian people picked him in these first round in 05, I believe it was. And then he lost, and once you got to the second round, he lost that. Even in 2011, he was still in contention, as when he went as the vice presidential. We all know who the power was behind behind that team. He was a real power behind that team of Winston Tubman and George Weah. He was still well in play. And so the Liberian people had always been with him until now. Even now, with this going election, he managed to get very close. He lost, which I predicted that the election was going to be very close, but that the Unity Party was going to pull out. I said between 10,000. You can go to the tapes, videos that we had on that. It was going to be between 10,000 to 20,000 vote difference, and that's what it was. So tremendously close. Still, George Weah had the opportunity to pull this out if he did the right thing, but he did not, of course. So those are some of the things I think he will be remembered for. Missed opportunity. And then, of course, history will brutally remember that he left the country to watch soccer when people were suffering and dying in Liberia. He will be remembered for flying around a lot, for playing a lot, for singing a lot, for dancing a lot. Those are things that you don't do as a president. You don't do too much of as a president. Any serious person would say, I have to govern. But he did not take those things seriously. Something in me was saying that, is he really serious? Does he really want to win this election? I didn't at first, I didn't think he was serious, but someone reminded me that he's very serious, and this is the way he carried himself. A president does not carry himself or herself that way. And so those are, right now, those are some things to remember.
I forgot to add one more thing, but
yeah, we'll come back. Victor, are you there? Victor Nambi.
Nabi.
Yeah, Victor is not there.
Victor is being harmonized.
Yeah. All right. So we are starting. We're going to go into it piece by piece. But having said that, right? What are your expectations? Let me just get a summary of your expectation of Joseph Numa Boakai. How you think he's going to do, Mr. Sharif?
I think, yeah, just more broadly, I have confidence that Joseph Boakai will. I hope that's all I can say. I hope that Joseph Boakai will come in and hit the ground running because my expectations are very high. Dennis, my expectation is through the roof, and so I'm not holding mine in check. I need to see those roads. Okay, when I see those yellow machines in 30 days, in 60 days, when I see those yellow machines around Zoedru, around Greenville, around Harper, just grading those roads. I don't care. Don't tell me about rainy season. I don't want to hear this. Let's get those roads fixed. When we were growing up, these roads, our parents could take transport vehicle from Zwedru to Monrovia same day. They could send us, to Ganta same day. We'll come back to Zwedru. So why have we taken 20,000 steps backwards now? I know the war and everything. We keep talking about the war. The war was go. We keep talking about the war. Guess what? Rwanda fought a civil war, a brutal civil war. Over 1 million people, from most estimates, died in Rwanda, in the Rwanda genocide. We had our own genocide. Hundreds of thousands of people, from many estimates, were killed in the Liberian genocide. Liberia was destroyed. Infrastructure destruction, human destruction, destruction of lives, destruction of our economy, the degradation of our social fabric. And so we now have the opportunity to correct the wrongs of all those years. Joseph Boakai now has the opportunity right now to correct the wrongs of the past. So I want to first see him fixing those roads. He said 100 days that no car is going to get stuck in the mud. And I need to see those things being actualized. And so I don't want to see any car get stuck in the mud in 100 days. Dennis, finally, as a long-term plan, I need those roads paved. Those roads, look, you go to Ivory Coast. What is wrong with us measuring ourselves with countries like Ivory Coast? So I need to see those roads paved. That's one of my expectations. Of course, there are other expectations as we go on tonight. And we will discuss in healthcare, in education, in all these different things, good governance and why not, the judicial system. And so as we go on, I will, lay out some of those other expectations that I have for the governance of Liberia under Joseph Boakai.
Right, and that's expectation, right? That's what you expect. But looking ahead, how do you think he's going to do?
Looking ahead, now, it's one thing to sit here and predict what the direction the voters are going to go in. When we were looking at the trend, the movement of the people and what they were saying on the ground, and so we were listening to this and we extrapolated, we're able to project, those kind of data, Dennis. And so sitting here with the governmental structure still being formed, I cannot tell you now what he is going to do in 90 days. I can hope, right, with the goodwill around him. There's a lot of goodwill. There's a lot of people who are willing now to go back to go back there. There are a lot of goodwill on the ground, tremendously. A lot of experts there that I think that if you tap into, that can be able to get the job done. There's a lot of good people that he can rely on. One thing I'm going to advise the president-elect is that don't burn bridges like George Weah. George Weah burned a lot of bridges. You heard what Americana said, different things that they did to those people. He pushed them aside. He pushed a lot of people aside. He kept them at a distance. I mean, there were people who campaigned for Joseph Boakai who were part of George Weah's CDC at his formative stage. The reason why they didn't support him this time, because he pushed them to the side. So I will hope that Joseph Boakai does not govern like George Weah in a manner where you're taking almost an illiterate, like the city mayor of Monrovia, Jefferson Kwiji, to run the city of Monrovia. And you are taking Nathaniel McGill, who does not know anything. You're taking him as the brain behind the executive mansion. You're sponsoring all these thugs, to destroy our country, to brutalize the opposition. You don't want to govern that way. So I will hope that Joseph Boakai will govern in a different manner.
Thank you. Evis, let's kind of look in the crystal ball now. How you think President Boakai will do? I mean, just
All right.
summarizing Weah's legacy, how you think that's going to compare?
Right. Thank you. One of the things that I missed, and that is the passing of the Dual Citizen Act, which I think really affects those of us who are in the diaspora more so than the people on the ground. And then I just want to give a little caveat. That trip that President Weah took was a it was under special circumstances, and I think we have to have show some sympathy with him. This is a man who won the Ballon d'Or, the greatest African football player of the century, as they name him, because he played for such a team like Liberia. He never had a chance to play in any World Cup, never had a chance, and then have a son who is playing in a World Cup. It's not something he wanted to miss for anything in his world. So I think you have to put yourself in that shoes, just as a father, and then your son realizing your dream that you had and you never achieved. So that was a special circumstance. But when it comes to Boyka,
But
actually,
Evans, quickly, for how long you think you can watch that game for?
yes, he may have overstayed, but again, it was the whole thing with the how he wanted to see his son play all the games that he could play, and after his son was out of the tournament, he came back home. But again, technically, he overstayed his visit. But I think him being there was something that he didn't want to miss for anything in the world. But when it comes to Boycott, I think I see a lot of goodwill, like Mohammed Sharif said earlier. I see a lot of international goodwill, more so than we are ever, accomplished in his first term or in his one term. And that will probably be number one. People say, well, this MCC challenge that the CDC passed, it's not the end all be all because they still have to make the case to get the money. And I think we think Boycott will be competent enough to make a compelling case to get the money. So that's going to be an extra, maybe 100 to 2 to 300 million. They may not get the full 500 million, but that's going to be extra money that Boycott could work with. So at least at the beginning of his term, he's going to have extra money to play with, and it's going to inflate his accomplishment because compared relative to George Weah, who came in with quote unquote a broke government, Boycott is going to be coming in with potential, hundreds of millions of dollars coming to him within his first couple of years if they make a compelling case to get that money. So that's a positive. And there's this thing: hindsight is 2020. You can always look back at your opponent and see things that they didn't do well and try to capitalize on that to make yourself look better politically. So I think Boyka and his people will look at George Weah's government, see what were their failures and things that they didn't do, very well, and try to improve upon it. To show a stark contrast between the two styles of government or governing. So I think, especially when it comes to security and rule of law, I think Boyka and his folks are going to try to make sure that they show a difference from the Weah-led administration, relative to that of the incoming Boyka administration. And then I think Boyka is really, really trying to, as an agriculturalist, I think he really wants to put his stamp on agriculture in Liberia. He's really focused on the agricultural sector, and he wants to make a big impact. So I think in the beginning of his term, the first 2 or 3 years, he's really going to put a focus on, in maybe places like Lofa and Bong and Nimba, really trying to get them going in terms of providing food for the nation. I think, looking at it in foresight, I think that's one of his key pillars, is really trying to push the agricultural system forward. And then lastly, I would say, I see a strong start, but then a weak finish. And again, I'm going to say something that might be controversial here, but it's just being honest. I think Boyka won't have the stamina that he starts with to finish it in 6 years. 6 years is a long time. So he may have all the stamina now to get the ball rolling and have a running start, but it's going to falter slowly but surely. In the third year going forward, things are going to start to stagnate. So I think if this the United Party, this incoming United Party government does not pass a second MCC challenge and get another couple of hundred, couple of hundred $1 million to help facilitate them with the monies that they need to do some of their pet, their so-called pet projects and things that they want to do to leave a legacy, they're going to have a hard time. So I think getting at least one more millennial challenge, or even two, if they can muster it, that's going to help them a lot in achieving, things that they need to do. But I think overall, coming in the next year or two, we're going to see a lot of difference in terms of governance. But again, after that, I think things are going to kind of maybe pivot, not pivot, but plateau, and maybe start to go downhill in terms of how the country is going. And I think Boakai as a whole is going to maybe take a more reserved role after his second year or third year and try to give Kuhn the ability to do more work, as Prince Johnson was alluding to. And I think things are probably going to go downhill after that. So strong start, but a weak finish. That's why I see on the Boakai. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nambwe, can we hear you now?
Can you guys hear me now?
All right. So, Mr. Nambwe, let's hear you on the legacy of Weah. That was the first question. What jumps out of you, and how do you think Mr. Boakai compared after his 6 years? We want to look at
thank you
for the president-elect.
Right. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you guys. If my connection is not very good, I'm not at my usual location. But first of all, I heard my young friend Elvis, talk about President-elect Boakai coming in with enough money to start with, a lot of money to start with. If I think I heard him right. We all heard that President Weah met over $150 million. The handover note that Senator Johnson continues to talk about. He claims that there were at least $150 million that the president met in the coffers. And what did they do with that money when they came in? We all know about the infamous mop-up operation, the $16 billion or whatever it is. I mean, you're talking less than 3 months when these guys came in. They were already, into all kinds of things. The president himself, with no bother to the optics, he began to build houses around the country. We all know this. But this president's legacy, right? I would have to say, there are some positives and a lot of negatives. On the positive side, I think him being a youthful president, I think he kind of demystified the presidency. I mean, which president in recent times will dance with the audience or dance on stage, with his staff? Even though at the time that the dance was aired, it seemed kind of insensitive, kind of tone deaf, because it was the time, I believe, that people were queuing for rising gasoline and stuff like that. But, to have a president come in the crowd and dancing with the people, kind of humanizing the presidency. And this is the president who went to, I believe, PHP and called out a young fellow who was heckling him and told him, look, if you think you want to begin, I'm a one begin myself. So he kind of humanized the presidency. I think we can also say that even though there were a few instances with the press, but to a large extent, we think he gave the press the free rein. I mean, of course, we know what happened to Henry Costa and the radio station, and also the attempt on the Spoon Network to shut them down, stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, even the very Henry Costa, he said pretty much any and everything about the president, and they let him. A lot of other people. So the press freedom, I believe, that was brought over from the previous administration, I think was allowed to flourish under this president. So I think that's one positive as well. Now, he will also go down as the president who brought practically no investment into the country. I mean, we all heard about the Igbo mouth loan and whatever that was. But the relative to what a president should do within the 6 year period, to what this president did in terms of bringing in investment. That was pretty much infinitesimal. So I think he's going to go down in history as that president who really remarkably failed to attract investment into the country. He will go down also as that president who allowed everyone else around him to play president but himself. I mean, we all know the Lord Mayor was president but all unto himself in the streets of Monrovia. We know the Minister of State was president unto himself. We know the Minister of Finance was president unto pretty much everyone around the president except him. He was an absent president. This is the president who never once spoke to the press, and never, except for maybe one or two snippets when he's returning to the country, and the press corner him at the airport and stuff like. Even then, it was a missed opportunity on numerous occasions to actually sell his message to the nation. So I think he's going to go down for that. He is also going to go down, I believe, as the presidency that witnessed so many unsolved murders. Too many people got killed under this president's watch. Those murders, most of them have remained unsolved. And so I think he's going to go down for that. Now, another little positive I believe is he's also going to go down as that president, an incumbent president who actually conceded defeat. I think this is monumental. It is not to be overlooked. Yes, transition was smoothly handed over to him by President Johnson, but President Johnson was not incumbent. She was not the sitting president, so she had to hand over. But this is a sitting president who got defeated at the polls and conceded and peacefully turned over the reins of power to another president. I think that's remarkable. So he has to be credited for that. So I'll leave it there for the moment.
Mr. John, please permit me to make one correction to Mr. Number, please. Just 30 seconds.
1 second. Mr. Number, just to conclude, how you think Mr. Boakai will do, given what you have listed for President Weah?
Yes. Well, on paper, meaning the people that he is surrounding himself with, seems to suggest that he may be off to a good start if they're allowed to function. I mean, we all seen the likes of Samuel Kofi Woods. He's an experienced civil servant. We've seen the likes of Larry Toba, a student activist, Anthony Kessley, a student activist, so all of these guys, they understand the struggle, and I think they will help him understand the pains and the suffering of the ordinary people. So that way, I think he'll be very responsive to the sufferings of the plight of the people if they're allowed, if he will listen to advice. Now, there are concerns also about his absence. Is he going to rule by committee? Is he going to rule by a continuous delegation? Is he going to, be the president who the people actually went to the polls to elect? That remains to be seen. As was done in the previous administration, the president pretty much delegated every function pretty much to his handlers. Hopefully, this president would not be that kind of president. So I think if the people we see surrounding him are allowed to play their roles, I think he'll be off to a good start. I don't know how it's going to end.
Thank you. Evans, your 30 seconds.
Thank you. Just a correction to you, Mr. Number. That turnover note that Prince Johnson was mentioning was 150 million in the National Reserve, in a reserve account for our country, which we can't use for our daily operation. That's almost like a last resort. You can't touch that money unless it's really, really absolutely necessary. We were essentially broke because our consolidated accounts, which is the account that the government is run on a daily basis, the outstanding debts that the government of Liberia had surpassed that of what was in a consolidated account. So effectively, we were in debt. So that's why they said that the government was broke when we had took over. So it's two different things. It's not the same thing. It was not $150 million to run the government. It was $150 million to the name of the country of Liberia. That's all we had in money for our entire country, which is very, very little. So I just want to make that clarification. It wasn't that he had 150 million to do whatever he liked. It was money that was almost in our savings account, so to speak. Thank you.
And how
So do
much
you,
was in the
you do,
consolidated
do
account, you say? Hold on, Victor.
Well,
How,
I don't know.
mhm.
I don't know exactly, but from the audits that
that's the
we
point,
had,
right?
it was
That's the
that
point.
the outstanding
I
debts
said that's the
were
point,
more
right?
than what
Because
they had in the consolidated account.
I think that's the point because we don't know, and
We don't know.
that's why the incoming administration this time now we want to be able to draw the line. How much are you meeting in the account? How much are you working with? We didn't know, so up to now, anyone can say whatever, right? So we can't defend that it was broke or not broke. So we assume that they have money, right?
We're
Mr. Morris.
assuming, we're speculating. We're speculating, but the reality is, usually a country does not have more money in a consolidated account than they have in the reserve. So we can only assume that it was less money that they had in those accounts, to that of what we had in our reserve. And $150 million running on a yearly basis, that's nothing. Our yearly budget is over 500 when we came 500 million and went up to 700 million. So what we need to run our government on a daily basis or on a monthly basis is around maybe $100 million or so, and we were short. I'm guaranteeing we're short of that.
No,
So,
we don't know, Mr. Morris. Let us not.
well,
We don't know. We were never told. I just
Well,
want us
you
to be
you
clear
guys can
on it.
always say that when you look at it, when you look at things in the country, you can tell that the country was doing well, the country is not doing well. When we came in, definitely we know Liberia was not doing well. Things was hard. That's why the
Yeah, I know,
overwhelmingly
but what
voted
I
for
was
him.
looking at,
So
so an example is how much in the consolidated account. And that's why we don't want the incoming Boakai administration to make the same mistake. Because even now
Sure.
we are still contending with how much was in the account. How many roads?
right.
Some say this kilometers of road, this kilometer of road. How many nurses were, I mean, things that's supposed to be as easy as eating shortbread. So why we didn't know, Mr. Nabo, you wanted to come in quickly before we go to
No,
another.
Dennis, I think you actually you pretty much took it out of my mouth. Why is it a secret? Why are they leaving us to guess? And if they're leaving us to guess, then we'll assume that what we just said is what was. Otherwise, I mean, they took $100 million to go and do mop up, or 16 billion, and then followed by another 25 million. I mean, that's not chump change for the Liberian economy.
Thank you. All right. Most of the time in Liberia, they say, I mean, things are not, we are not talking on facts. Tonight, I want us to do our best to stick to facts and see where we are. Let's start with coming to office, right? The expectation, the kind of election that we are won, the kind of election that Boakai won this time. It's a historic elections. And then let's come to what was inherited, the kind of country. Compare the kind of country inherited by Weah, compare that to what Boakai is inherited. And so, what are the expectations, and how did Weah meet those expectations? Mr. Sharif, let me start with you. Let's talk about the elections, both of them that it came to power with. You know, how historic was it, the mandate, the resounding, whatever you want to characterize it. And then we come to the countries he inherited in vis-a-vis what Boakai inherited, and as a result, what are those expectations? How did we meet those expectations, and how we expect Boakai to do the same, Mr. Sharif?
Yeah, one of the things that we left out of his Weah legacy, one of his legacies will be that this is an administration that did not reshuffle. So despite everything that went on, with the different ministers, directors, Weah was very confident in his appointees, and therefore he never reshuffled. So the only major shakeup was McGill and Twawe and others who were relieved of their positions at, one would say, at the acquiescence, for lack of a better word, of the United States government, because these guys were sanctioned, and wanted to get rid of them, even without knowing the facts and evidence surrounding that.
Yeah,
And so,
and we'll come to those sanctions. Maybe that's another legacy, right?
yeah. So,
Maybe,
but
maybe.
Yeah. What he he inherited at the time was just goodwill, shared goodwill. There was already the structure was already in place. So to me now, I think in a lot of ways it was just a matter of plug and play, and he would have had a good time, I think. Under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, there were experts. Whether we can argue this, whether we agree or not. There were some experts, and individuals who knew what they were doing. Quite frankly, if you compare the two administrations, so I think we are coming in. You don't have to burn all these bridges. You don't have to get rid of all these people, all these, from the Ellen Johnson years. My understanding is that it was a clean sweep. He didn't need those people. And so the first challenge that he then had was to fill in those, those slots. Where are you going to get them from? And so that was his first challenge. Another thing I think is that, just the fact that the Liberian people at this time when George Weah took over were very eager for change. So, people want to change now. People complain about corruption in the previous administration, justifiably or unjustifiably. Those are discussions in the air. And so they wanted, they want to change. And that's the reason why George Weah won that election. And so the fact that he did not fulfill that expectation was a bit let down. And so those are the two things that we look at, whether or not the money was there. But first, you have to have those two, foundations. So the foundation was already there for him to succeed. And while we're talking about money, and
Mr. Story, is that same foundation there for Boakai to take over?
I think right now, as Jay Victor mentioned, there are experts. There are goodwill right now. He named some names.
No, what I mean is, people that were working prior to Weah taking over, as you said, they were experts. So the foundation was laid, and you said it was supposed to be now plug and play. When you compare that to the people that are working in the Weah government that Boakai is taking over from, is that foundation still there? Is it going to be plug and play, or is it easier or going to be harder for Boakai?
Dennis, you know what my answer is going to be. I know you are very good. You're a very good host. You're a very excellent journalist. You're a very excellent host. But you know what my answer is going to be. Come on, stop playing. It's not there. The foundation is not there, right? So it cannot be plug and play right now. Those guys, there has to be a sweep. There has to be a sweep. I think last time I mentioned I think I must have dropped the name of Vani Sirleaf. There's a guy at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I think he's doing okay. He's doing better than many people in that administration. So maybe Boakai is going to take a hard look at some of these people that serve Weah. So if I'm telling you now that Boakai is going to come in and do as we are recommending, I don't think that's what he's going to do. So he's going to take a hard look at some of them. But no, I mean, generally, it's not going to be plug and play. I mean, you look at Eugene Nangwe. What is Eugene Nangwe doing at Maritime Affairs? What is Jefferson Koji doing at City Hall? What is the reason why Jefferson Koji should be the city mayor of Monrovia? This is a catastrophe. And so you need to move on from those people. You need to move on from Samuel Toy and others. You need to move on from those people. You need to move on from the minister. I can't think of her name now. The Minister of Commerce. You need to move on from her. So people like that cannot serve the new administration. That's a recipe for disaster. And so when you start off, hanging around those kinds of characters, individuals, it's a recipe for disaster. And
Thank
so
you.
for Boakai has a challenge there in terms of who do I pick, who stays here. Because let me tell you, Dennis, real quick, what's going to happen is people in this outgoing administration, if they're not lobbying now, they're going to be lobbying. They're going to be lobbying to stay. Some of them are going to lobby for different positions if it's not their current position. And that's what Boakai is going to have to contend with. They're going to go around asking, begging for forgiveness, asking for second chances and all of these different things to try to stay on the new administration. This goes on all the time. I would not be surprised if it goes on. Again, whether or not Boakai accepts that is a different
Thank you,
story.
Mr. Cherry.
Yes.
Elvis, you already talked about the economy that was inherited. So let's compare what Boakai is inheriting to what George Weah inherited. Let's look at there were UN, a lot of goodwill towards the country. So maybe the lights were on, right, compared to what Boakai is inheriting now. So I want you to compare that, and as a result, what would the expectations be based on the what Boakai is inheriting today from the economy, the people, the infrastructure, and everything else?
All right. So, in order for my analysis to be factual, we have to have data. And I think we lack the data right now because if we're looking at it based on sympathy or perception, we can't say that the economy was good when George Weah took office, because the people, like again, people don't vote against a particular government or particular political institution who have given them something good. George Weah won an overwhelming election, as we remember. We're quick to forget. So if things were so good in the country, especially if the economy was good and the people was thriving, economically, they would have probably maintained the United Party, status quo.
They voted for them twice,
So
though.
if we could say that again,
So they voted for them twice, though. 20,
no,
20
no, you're saying when we had took over in that snapshot in time, how was the economy? I don't remember that far back, and I don't have the numbers to pinpoint whether or not the economy was growing or how things were doing, during those times. But the perception of the people was obviously that things weren't good because they voted we are overwhelmingly. So compare that to what Boakai is coming into now. And I think this is George Weah's, President Weah's biggest failure is the economy. I think Samuel Toya, like people like to say, was doing voodoo economics, you know, quote unquote, digging hole to cover hole, moving, moving things here like, the three-car Monty, when you somebody puts it in the cup and they move it, switch it around, and you gotta guess what's under which one is the right thing that's under the cup. So Samuel Toya, he either needed more competent people around him to reach his full potential as an economist, or George Weah needed to bring somebody more competent than Samuel Toya. I think that was one of his biggest failures. Look, everybody knows that handling an economy, especially a national economy, is very, very difficult, especially in a developing country like Liberia. Sometimes you need two or three, or even maybe a five, you know, council where you have people with PhD in economy, economic economists who are very well learned, and you can put those five brains together to even get something going. So I think George Weah, maybe if he's coming back his next time, you have to prioritize that position and have a council of economists who can really give you some innovative ideas on how to raise the economy and how to grow the economy. One man cannot do it. Senator, maybe he convinced the president that he was capable of doing it. Having not worked as a minister of anything, was only a consultant to the former government, felt like he could do this all by himself, and he can't do it. Even if he was really, really smart as you think he was, he still couldn't do it by himself. So I think the economy is something that George will have failed. And hopefully Joseph Boyka, like we said, hindsight is 2020. If he's doing his homework, he will say, well, that's a position that I really need to put the best and brightest. And maybe even have an unprecedented dual, quote unquote foreign or finance ministers, where you have a couple of economists who are there working in concert to really push the economy forward. Because putting one person there and thinking there's some kind of financial genius and they can do things like somebody like Amara Conan, who was admirable, he performed admirably in that position. But there's not a lot of Amara Conans in Liberia. So if you find somebody else who might be a peg down the ladder in terms of the economic prowess, you have to have at least somebody else that's going to shadow them and bounce ideas off of them to really have an effective economy. So economy not good on the Weah, and apparently it wasn't good enough on the Ellen Johnson side.
And
Another thing I think boycott. Go ahead.
Evans, before you continue, those people you talk about should be the deputies, the assistant. Do you know, or the finance ministry, when we often speak about it, has finance ministry, but it's finance and development planning. Do you know that we've completely forgotten about that other piece, the development planning? Because this was the
Right.
form of planning and economic ministry that's being combined. And even as someone who look at this thing on a daily basis, do you know it was just this week that I found out who's the deputy for development planning is? Mr. Sharif, do you know the
It's
name?
Samara Wolokoli, right?
No.
The,
Wolokoli is for fiscal affairs.
no,
Can
Okay,
anybody
okay.
tell
So
the
who is
name of
it?
the one for development planning?
no.
That
I
speaks
can,
volume,
I,
right? Because
I
that's
can tell
very
you.
key. Because what Tua was doing, Tua was just acting like a susupa. Because it was all about moving. Here we got this money, we got this money.
Mhm.
We take it and pay the people. We do the budget, and we move the money here and there. That's all he talked about, right?
Right.
But what's about the development planning? That's a female who name I just got to know because
Mm.
everything was to her, right? So the whole piece of
Right.
development planning was completely left out. Remember, this was a whole ministry by itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's guess who was there? Kwame Tipote.
Hmm.
So if you combine that
Wow.
with finance ministry, and now you have nothing like that going on. The two people named to her were Wolo Koli and Tue.
Right. And
Go
before I
ahead, continue.
finish
I
up,
just
I'll
wanted
give
to
a
add.
suggestion. Yes, I will give a suggestion to boycott. And I think it was a smart thing that Alice Cummings did. And I think this will be his perfect position. If he doesn't quote unquote want to serve in government as a presidential appointee, he should serve as the chief advisor to the finance minister. Or Joseph Boyka should make him a chief special advisor to the finance minister. And then go to Cummings and ask him for his advice on the policies that his finance minister is trying to implement. See if it's sound or not, and use Cummings's, great financial management that he brought from Coca-Cola to help him. And I think Cummings left that door open by not openly endorsing George Weah, even though his party went that way. I think that relationship, if it could be mended, I think Cummings, like I'm hoping for a financial committee. That's my whole point because I think Liberia economy is so bad that you need multiple financial geniuses if we have them to really get us moving. And I think that's what Boycott needs to do because if we want to be, you know, conciliatory and hopefully help this new government and give them quote unquote good ideas. I don't know if my idea is good, but if he can come to a point where he realized that the country problem is too much for just one quote unquote minister to handle, you have to have almost two co-equal ministers working in concert, and then other people around them that's going to give them the needed experience and knowledge to help them do their jobs. I think Boycott needs to go that route, or else he's going to have challenges, same as Weah, same as Ellen. Ellen, one of the the ministry that Ellen made the most change was in a finance ministry. I think she had like four finance ministers. She had Gafuan, she had Boyma Kamara, all right. She had Amara Kone, and then she had Lucini Kamara when she first came in. So
No,
she had almost four, I
Dr.
think, of
Sayed.
five ministers.
You forgot
Yeah,
Dr.
there
Sayed.
you go. Again, yeah. So I think five then, if you're counting. So it just tells you how sensitive that ministry is, and to where they didn't do a good enough job to even be there for more than 1 year. So Boyka needs to really, really focus on it if he wants to see a good economic upturn in his presidency. I'll leave it there. I think I've been talking too long.
Very, very long. Mr. Victor, do you think, like we're talking about the personnel and what Waka is inheriting, now comes the U.S. with sanctions, right? These are people that are supposed to be maybe
Right.
retained in the government if they are good. So what does the U.S. sanction do? Does it try to undermine the Weah legacy? Does it try to help Boakai with a clean slate? What does it try to do in terms of what Boakai is inheriting?
Well, I think. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're helping him to set a stage for you know what he would need to do um, to rein in um, this rampant corruption that we all hear about, and we actually see taking place in government. I think they are being bold now with the message that if you come into government and you think government is your personal, farm or something, whatever it is, uh, there are consequences awaiting you. So I think, in a sense, it will help the incoming president, even if he didn't want to push back against corruption. Even the actors themselves will self monitor their actions in government. As to the lendings, I think the outgoing president, I think, had a much softer lending when he came in than he's leaving his predecessor. I think we all hear that practically all the major projects that this president, undertook were actually uh, projects that were initiated by the former president, President Johnson. Talking about the ministerial complex, talking about most of these roles that this president dedicated on the administration. It's very difficult to find that impactful project that this president initiated and completed. And so he had these projects already on the table, ready to go, and so he came and completed most of them. I'm not sure if the same thing awaits the incoming president. I'm not very sure of that. And then we have already alluded to, the pillaging of the coffers. I'm not sure how much the president is going to start with, even though my friend Elvis has indicated that there is, I think, because this outgoing president administration won the Millennium Challenge. I'm not sure if that money is actually readily, it's going to be available yet. I'm not sure the process is concluded because I understand there are still stages that they have to clear before you access this money. So I hope that's not what he's referencing. As to what will be left in the coffers to get this president started and going, I'm not so sure that there's going to be that much in there because we know people who work in government complain about sometimes how long they have to wait to get paid. And we know also that the economy, what was the rate when President Johnson was leaving office and what is the rate now? I think the rate is around 180 something now, which was not. And these are all reflections of the economy not doing so well. So I would say that the President Weah had a better, much softer cushion when he came in to start with than he would be leaving his predecessor to start with. I worry that there may not be much. So I think that the incoming president will really hit the ground on his own hustle to a much larger extent to bring in resources. We also know that under this outgoing president, like we indicated earlier, there wasn't that much investment coming to the country because the economy is helped when we have private partners coming into the country to partner with government. Government cannot be the only employer in the country or the largest employer in the country when you have people working and earning money and spending and paying taxes. All of these help the economy. I'm not sure it will witness that much of that under this outgoing government. And
Thank you.
so comparing the two, I would think yes.
No, you go ahead because we're talking about
Yeah.
investment. We're
So
talking about
yeah,
this. So
no. So basically, yeah, with those observations, I would think the outgoing president had a much softer landing than this incoming president.
thank you. I was telling you about the finance, the deputy for budget and development planning, and you guys can't remember. So I found it. Let me show you. Honorable Tane G. Brunson.
Never heard of her.
Right. That's
Never
the
heard of her.
Deputy Minister of Budget and Development Planning. She being assisted
Ne-
by Honorable Jesse Koboy and Honorable Benedict Koluwa. That's the
Never heard of
Assistant
any of
Minister
these.
for Budget and then the Assistant Minister for Development Planning.
Oh,
So
Hmm.
planning,
Wow.
yeah. So
Are they new in these positions?
that should tell you that should tell you that we have a problem. Because remember when your kid go to kindergarten and they put on my son by class of 2030. That means they're already looking ahead and they know how many people are going to be in 12th grade
Right,
2030. And so
right,
they plan
right.
just basic. For some of our friends who are doing economics at the university, they practically live at the planning ministry with all the big moms and all because there are a lot of information statistics
Mm-hmm,
there.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
if you combine that with the finance ministry and now you have Enter Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to also give you a look. You were talking about development, I mean, investment. So one of the investment that is in Liberia from old time is Firestone, right? Let me play you a clip 5 years ago when President Weah met people from Firestone. Take a listen.
Welcome. So, Mr. President, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to meet with you. My name is Ed Garcia. I'm the president of the Firestone Company based in the U.S. I'm also the president and managing director of Firestone Liberia. And with me is Councilor Gerald Padmore, who's a legal advisor to Bridgestone Americas in the U.S. And also next to him is Councilor Gordon Galley. He is our director for legal affairs here in Liberia. Thank you, sir. So I really would like to take this opportunity to share with you the state of our business in Liberia. I think you will find it very important.
Sometimes we dream, but at least at the start, I may dream. Maybe Maggie will continue the dream. But when we put stuff in place, it doesn't matter whether we achieve it or not. Somebody can take it from there. So it's been long years since 1920. Firestone been here. 1920, and we don't have a tire factory, neither a plastic bag factory, and that's a long time. Our parents died. Our generation, our orientation, we live, for me, I live everywhere. I live in London, Paris, Monte Carlo, New York, Miami. So we have to make sure that for all of us to benefit, we got to help each other to grow. If not, it becomes difficult.
So you expect investment.
Wow.
All right. So that was President Weah with, and I brought that in just to show you were talking about investment. So I don't know what you remember anything the president.
Dennis, let me just 1 second. I know you're trying to go to now, but 1 second, right?
No, I know you want to talk about the history, right? 1920.
No, not particularly that. Not particularly that. But I kind of like what he was trying to do there. Just reminding Firestone, you guys been here since 1920, but we don't even have a tire factory in Liberia. So if you're committed to this kind of thing, I think that he was onto something. But like Elvis said, sometimes, as a president, the way you articulate some things, your idea, you may have an idea, that he has an idea. Right there, I can see that he has an idea. He had an idea, and he's saying to them, "Well, I may start something, and then McGee will finish it. Maybe I was born here. I've lived everywhere." In a way, to me, he's expressing a frustration with big company. This big company has been there since 1920, and who's 1926 in the 1920s, and who's benefiting from this is the conglomerates. It's these these people that are robbing our country of its resources. So I think it was onto something there. I don't know what follow-ups were made. That's all I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't really see where he was going. But let me summarize for you. When I was researching on the legacy of Weah, this is what I found, right? Number one, we talk about the historic elections, as a former international football star winning the presidential elections. That victory, that was a historic moment, right? He became the first former professional footballer to be elected as president in Africa, right? That was big deal. And then when we come to the economic reforms, we saw that he has a lot of challenges, coming from Ebola and all that. And so there was high expectation to attract foreign investment and improve the infrastructure. How did he do that? I mean, we can debate that tonight. In education, improving education and healthcare system were his key priorities, right? And so he launched some initiatives. He would tell you about Weah fees and free tuition. In fact, he was going to free graduation. To what extent that's going to impact education in the country, that remains to be seen. And also, they say, well, nurses' salary, he sent doctor specialists to train. Then when it comes to anti-corruption effort, his administration initiated some measures to address corruption, but how far did that go? We can talk about that. Infrastructure development, many people in Liberia agree that he built roads, even though people from the Unity Party will argue that, hey, these were initiated by Ellen and paid for. You didn't do it. What you yourself initiated, you couldn't even go anywhere with it. And then some social initiatives, including rural housing, as one of our friends would say, and all these. But then on the flip side, you already talk about the inability, well, the kind of the quality, the caliber of people that were in his government. And he wouldn't even mind to reach, even in technical positions. You will have people that, and we saw that with the RIA appointment. At the time, RIA needed someone. He brought somebody who was barely even a mechanic to do that. Anti-corruption efforts. And now his government now has been the one that have received, more sanctioned officials than any other government. That too is something to talk about. Evis, what do you think?
President Weah has some challenges, of course. Coronavirus was something that shut down the entire world economy.
Yeah.
So you want to say something?
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
Right. So when you're talking about other countries coming in to bring investments, or people coming from other countries to bring investments, their economy too has somewhat of a recession, if not a flat out depression. So a lot of these people are not looking to do any kind of investments, especially outside of their countries, when they needed a lot of economic, or rehabilitation within their own countries. It's not like Ebola where it was regional. Well, just in West Africa and other countries were still doing well. A pandemic, a worldwide pandemic that put a lot of countries in a bad economic state. So we had suffered from that, definitely. But what he suffered from most, and I would sound like a broken clock here, is the lack of expertise when it came to the people that he put in charge of managing the finances of our country and the economy of our country. And I think
Evans, why was that?
That's what I'm saying. And somebody said it in the comment, and I'm going to steal that person comment. And I forgot the name. I won't be able to give them credit, but I had the same thought. people think that George Weah didn't want to work with quote unquote more competent people. And this is where a lot of people talk about the intelligentsia. And I'm not here to bring any conspiracy theories, but a lot of people feel like they were too smart and too sophisticated to support Weah. And they went against him. They thought he wasn't smart enough, he wasn't sophisticated enough. So a lot of the qualified, competent people who could have helped him were politically opposed to him. So the people that was with him for the longest, the Samuel Twirs, the Kojis and the other people who were with him, who may have had some little qualification relative to the other people that supported him, were the prime, candidates for these positions, because those who are more qualified and more experienced, they couldn't see eye to eye with President Weah. And perhaps that's why he should have been magnanimous enough to say, well, these guys didn't support me politically, but I need them on a national, level to serve in my government. That's where he should have done some quote unquote reconciliation with these professional people who may not have supported him politically. And that's why I think it is, Mr. John, that he brought people who stuck with him politically and rewarded them with these positions that was over their head. Samuel Toy could have been an assistant minister, learn on the job, and maybe be a good minister someday. But just thrusting him into that position after being a consultant is way, way over his head. The same thing for other ministers to be said. Jefferson Koji, of course, has no administrative history of running anything, and you put him in a larger city, and a city that is so complicated and sophisticated that needs a lot of work. Put him in that position, he was doomed to fail. He took the job because it was lucrative, because it was powerful, but they knew that they couldn't do the job. And I'm sitting here today. I think a lot of people may not say it, but if somebody said, "Oh, let's go be president of Liberia," I would quickly decline it. People can tell, "Oh, he's smart." I'm not anywhere close to being smart enough to be a president for a country. So that's where you have to know your limitation. And these guys probably knew their limitation and say, you know what, to heck with it. I'm going to still take it. The money is good. Or perhaps they didn't know their limitations, which is it's a bad place to be. Know your limitations. So I think George Weah, his biggest problem was trusting people who was loyal to him politically, regardless of their qualifications. That's what hurt him the most.
And we're going to be saying this for a long time, because what even surprised me myself is, I grew up during the Doe era, and we all agree Doe was barely graduated from high school, but this man was still able to spot people and put them into position. As I learned that he was even going to Liberia, he was on a plane with this young man coming to Liberia who graduated with a degree in engineering, and said, "Oh, really? These are the people we want." And that's Christopher Neal. And they say he held his hand and took him to Samuel Burnett. But we don't see that with President Weah. And so, Victor, what really happened that President Weah did not attract or have people in position that can really do the job?
One second before you go to Mr. Nangwa, I just want to say that what you just said, Mr. Ja, we're not getting a lot of PhD holders coming back into Liberia. Remember during Doe time, the likes of George Boakai was coming with a PhD, but then it was coming in.
Ellen time attracted a lot of people, or maybe there was no money to pay them, but
most of them are in the diaspora. They're not in Liberia. They're not coming back home and being there together to work with the president.
What I have seen a lot of people go to Liberia with the hope of working for the government, and you wouldn't pick them up nor lay them down. Why do we have in Monrovia someone like the Josephine Davis running around, and people that you really know that, I don't want to use any word that would demean them, but they cannot do the job. Why would Mr. Weah hire this guy to be RIA boss? Who is advising him? Is it that he's not listening? Is it that he's being deceived? Mr. Sharif, what's wrong? Why did Mr. Weah did not get the actual people that can do the job?
Some time ago, our former colleague was on here reminding us that, when we all used to laugh at Will Marconi, he was talking about one round, the one round theory. One of the other things that Will Marconi was very well known for was saying that this is, a battle against the so-called intelligentsia. He ran around with this. These are things that George Weah truly believed in. He believed that this was their time. This is our time. You know, this is a fight. You know, these people that are coming over here saying that they know too much book, that their business. This is our time. So the moment he moved away from governance to this is our time, it had to be, you know, there has to be, you know, to me, how do I explain this? There had to be a concerted effort on his part to go with this kind of style of leadership that he exhibited over 6 years, the last 6 years. So part of that leadership is, you know, constricting, you know, power to you know, a handful of a hardcore group of guys who believe that this is their time. This is their time to enjoy. Not this is the time to develop Liberia, but this is our time too. The other people had their time for over 100 years. These other people had their time. These other people are out here in 2005 to 2011 to 2016. They had their time too. This is our time. When you rationalize leadership this way, you're not going anywhere. Look at Maxwell Kemia. Look at the guy who is the foreign minister. Yesterday, I watched. Anthony had a very good show and terrific guests. You know, talking about Liberian foreign policy. You know, your foreign policy is a reflection of your internal policy. So whatever, you know, whatever is projected, you know, to the outside world, no amount of public relations is going to help you if internally your internal mechanics, your internal structure is rotten, and that's what happened. That's what's happening under George Weah, you know, for the last 6 years. So no matter what amount of money you spend on public relations, it didn't matter because internally you had to fix that. It was never fixed. I mean, the person who was picked as the Minister of Foreign Affairs is someone who allegedly has issues in the United States. That was never resolved. Those things were never resolved. And so you can go on and on and on to Jefferson Kwiji, you know, and others. You know, the poster child for incompetence, Mr. Jefferson Kwiji. You can go on forever to Eugene Nagwe and others. So your question is, who's advising George Weah on these things? I think George Weah's biggest advisor is himself. George Weah listens to himself. And once you do that, what you're going to have a circle of guys. It's usually guys who their only job is to now sit there as praise singers. You know, some of them will say, for example, you know, the best president that ever lived. You know, from J.J. Roberts to now, George Weah is the best president. And Weah listens to this. He thinks this is true. But you and I know, Dennis, this is not true. George Weah you cannot say George Weah is the best president that ever lived in Liberia. That's not true. But this is what he believed. And so those things contributed to the downward trajectory that you see now.
Thank you. Mr. Nambi.
Yeah, honestly, Dennis, I myself, I am baffled by this president's inability to, to bring in uh, competent people to help him succeed. I never understood that, and up to now, I've never understood. I don't think I understand it yet. But I do know that there was plenty of advice available to him. I know that because the UPP put out, made several overtures to this president to give some advice, and all attempts were rebuffed. To Mr. Sherry's point, I think this could probably be due to the people surrounding the president. I heard that some of these people practically live at the president's house. I mean, from sunrise to sundown. You know, they're there with him. You know, like Mr. Sherry clearly, pointed out. Just lavishing praises on this president and kind of clouding his vision. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know why. I'm baffled by that. But it is clear that this president did not get the help that he needed to succeed. And why that is, I don't know.
Hmm. And talking about that, that leads us to Mr. Boakai, right? Because Boakai now is taking over. And already we are hearing
Right.
names up to now. So with the way Boakai is going, I believe Boakai is in the United States. There's been not much information is coming out as to how he's doing, what actually he's doing. The first thing that hit us when he came was, his infamous meeting with Mr. Witherspoon. And since then, there was a program for him in Philadelphia. I don't think he attended. So what is he doing? The transition is going on. He was not there for his certification. So based on all these things, and we are hearing names around as people possibly that will be part of his government. How do you see Mr. Boakai moving away from what we saw Weah did? And two areas, Mr. Jerry talked about reshuffling and all the caliber of people he bring around, and speaking to the people, as Ever said, letting us know what's going on. Mr. Nabe, how do you think Mr. Boakai is going to do in those two areas?
I said earlier that given the people that he surrounds himself with, one is given to believe that he is going to do well. He has a number of good people around him. Some of them are, um, seasoned, civil servants, and so hopefully he's going to take advice from these people. He's going to take counsel from them. But I have always said that I am troubled by this president elect's decision making process, the history of his decision making. That troubles me. It takes the longest to make a decision, and most often than not, he gets it wrong. I mean, the recent case in point is what you just mentioned, right? You are the president elect of a country, and you come and you sit in the basement or wherever it is of a private citizen who is. So that is why it is difficult to read how this president is going to proceed. We can only know when he should have started, you know. Um, but he has the potential to do good. If only for nothing but the people he has surrounding him. I think he will get good advice, and I think he will get good guidance. Whether he's going to listen, whether he's going to follow, I don't know. We can only hope so.
Thank you. And I still want to go back to what I said before about Sister
Bronson.
Yeah. So I just put it from the side there because we're talking about the caliber of people, right? So I wanted to see where she worked before. It says since her return to Liberia in 2009, she has played a key role in the government's public financial management reform initiatives. She was assigned at the Ministry of Finance, where she provided guidance on the development and implementation process of the annual budget, directed and managed analysis of budget information to respond to internal and external queries, and provided critical information to senior decision makers consistent with government priorities and financial resources. So if you are looking to hire someone, that's what you're going to get. Then to education, she went to CWA, got her bachelor in business administration from LU in 1979, and then she came to Atlanta here and went to Atlanta University with a Master of Arts degree in economics at 1989. So the profile does not really state, where she worked to be able to earn that kind of position. Mr. Sharif, the same question on Boakai, right? Based on what we've seen, talking to the people, appointing the kind of people that would not be like what we saw with Mr. Weah. How do you look at Mr. Boakai?
I think that his transition team that J. Victor alluded to a little bit earlier. I think that they will do a good job of getting the requisite talents. I'm still confident that that's going to happen. Now,
why they're not talking to us?
Yeah, this is a $63 million question, right? I wish I knew the answer to this. You and I have time and time and again. We talked about communication, even during the election. I mean, nobody was talking to the electorates. You're talking about a country where there's no debate, there's nothing going on. No major press conferences. The president of the country was only using the pulpit to deliver his, nation of, his weekly address to the nation. And then you have the opposition that's not doing better in terms of communication. So, look, we talked about this, and it is going to happen. Now, you've started seeing now the Secretary General of the Unity Party out front with some information. I think that, the transition team had a meeting, and he's coming out now with statements, which is a good sign. I think they have begun to do that now, and they should do that often from now to Inauguration Day. But as far as the president himself, we're not hearing from him. I don't think we're going to hear from him until after inauguration. I don't think that I have a different take on this. I don't think you can only have one president at a time. So I don't think we should be hearing from him every now and then, or every time. I shouldn't say every now and then. I don't think we should be hearing from him frequently. We should be hearing from the transition team, not necessarily the president-elect. Now, after the inauguration, I would like to hear from him weekly. I like these kinds of, definitely, if not weekly, at least give me some monthly conferences, press conferences, major. We're talking about major press conferences where you're standing out there delivering, to the press, delivering to the nation through the media. Okay, so maybe after the inauguration, these things are going to happen. For right now, I don't expect the president-elect to be saying anything.
Thank you.
But is it a good thing, though? Dennis, can I just quickly, is it a good thing to have the secretary of the party being the spokesperson for the transition team? I mean, you have people like, Cyril Besler-Yanti on the team. You have George Wallace on the team. You have Kofi Woods on the team. You have all these people. Why is the secretary of the party being the spokesperson for the transition team? You don't see that here with the DNC or the RNC.
Right, but he's kind of like the communication director in the United States. You will have that person named the communication director, but we always like to, Secretary General and this and that and the other. So the meeting they had, I think it was yesterday or sometime
right
ago. Kofi Woods was there. Kofi Woods and Maxwell Kimia, they were heading that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Secretary General was just, he was just there to introduce them. So I think they're coming around to doing some things now. Those things just need to be done more frequently.
Right, and one more action. Someone is even calling for Mr. Weah to be removed from the JPTT because he's been sanctioned. And just quickly, do we think President Weah is going to fire Weah and Koji just as he did to the other three? Why or why now? Evis, what do you think?
I think it would be inconsequential, so to speak. And we all know that if George Weah gets a second term in 2029, if he wants it, he's not going to be bringing back Weah and McGill and these guys. It's not going to be the same team. It's going to be formulated with different people. But quickly, I want to touch on this Joseph Boakai issue quickly before we go to the lines.
I want to push you a little bit on that. I'm saying when Bill Tuawe Nathaniel McGill, and Serena Sivers, when they fell in trouble, Mr. Weah fired them.
Yeah.
Is he going
Well,
to fire?
that,
Is he going to fire
Mr. John, I think you're making a joke, and I'm not gonna play into your joke
No,
because the reality is he has less than a month left in
right.
office, right?
Yeah,
So, or a little
Yeah,
over a
but
month
but
left in
but
office.
even with less than a month, he fired two ministers what a week ago, right?
right. And with less than a month, he has issued a ban on the export of rubber. So he's working, right?
Right. He's doing stuff.
So what is different
Yeah, but I mean,
with Tua and Koji? Is he afraid of them?
right. One of the things that even happened was that the legislature said that they couldn't convene for session because the president didn't, do the requisite, give them the requisite documentation to call for a session to pass certain things that he wanted. So having to, sack the finance minister and then put a replacement in, have that person confirmed to serve as the proper, the finance minister proper. It's a whole process, and he has less than that time to be, to be doing that. It's inconsequential. Those guys, if they're going to be prosecuted, they'll be prosecuted after they leave office. They're lame ducks. It's not necessary, in my opinion. So I think, at this point in time, it doesn't matter. But let me get to Joseph Boakai quickly before we get to callers. For me, I'm perplexed by the urgency of Boakai coming to the United States right after being elected, even to the detriment of not being certificated on time. This is something that he wanted his whole life. He's now gotten it, and he skips his certification program because he wants to quote unquote thank his supporters in the United States. Yes, some of us like to think we're so important to the development of Liberia. We're important in a way, those of us who are in the diaspora, specifically in the United States. But we're not more important than the president elect being certificated. I would think so. So it leads some of us to speculate, but I think I'll refrain myself from doing any kind of speculations. It's time to move on. It's time to grow up and give him now the benefit of the doubt and not speculate about anything, in regards to why he left the country and he refused to go back for such an important ceremony. So I don't know, Boykai, and Muhammad Sharif said it too, and I must commend him because I have that same thought. He lacks communications. His communication skill is also lacking. Perhaps better than President Weah, but he doesn't really, very much talk to the press. And I think part of that, again, not speculation, but more of a fact, is maybe having to stand up for 30, 40 minutes and give a press conference. Maybe we'll see Boykai in his office doing these little interviews, and Monsieur Pade would be, putting it out there as a way of communicating with the nation. But communicating, doing a press conference for an hour, 2 hours is hard. It's not something that just anybody can do. You have to have the stamina to do that. So we'll see how Boyka does with communicating to the nation, but I think he himself, while in opposition, was lacking when it came to communication, communicating with his partisan or the nation as a whole. But I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. John.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you are just joining us, this is Friday Night Debate. We are discussing the legacy of George Weah and the prospect of President-elect Joseph Numa Boakai. If you want to join the conversation, the number is on the screen, 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. So lastly, before I bring in the colors, let's talk about the sanctions. And so Weah now has gone down in the history. Maybe he's the only one who is facing this. Someone called him the social media president. I mean, during the Weah presidency, social media was at its best, right? Unlike Ellen, who has at least half of that, so he had more scrutiny, and everything was in the open. When one time, Senator Senator Weah came to America and said, "Hey, this time you can't lie anymore, because by the time you come from Liberia, you come here, everything about you is known," right? But with the sanctions being handed down, and Mr. Weah did very well the last time, even though he didn't go the extra mile to call for prosecution, but he fired the first three government officials that were sanctioned. Right now, I see Tua and the rest of the people trying to go to the press. Instead of calling for, people who are sanctioned should go to the court in Liberia and clear their names. The president should be able to lead that effort. And I was asking Evis, is he afraid to fire Tua and Koji? And Evis tried to dodge the question, even though he did well by saying, well, it's too late. Mr. Sharif, what you make of that, not being able to fire Tua, or do you think he's going to fire them? And when it comes to handling these sanctioned officials, how did Weah do in that department, and what do we expect from Boakai? How do you think Boakai is going to handle this?
First, so if you are a Weah supporter, you feel bad for the guy that now under his administration he has to face all these sanctions. And like you said, in this age of social media, social media has emerged as the equalizer. Way back in time, Marshall McLuhan, a communication expert, Canadian communication expert, says that we live in a global village, and and so we truly are living in a global village now with the emergence, the mass emergence of social media. And so that plays a role in what is going on right now. So to your question, I hate to be taking a decision based on, these sanctions. First of all, the issue with Tua should have been adjudicated a long time ago. He didn't have to wait for the United States sanction. We're talking, at the very least, a reshuffle would have done it a year ago, 2 years ago. Maybe we can do a reshuffle where Tua goes somewhere else and Koji goes somewhere else. But he did not reshuffle that cabinet. And so now you have what you have, and these individuals are sanctioned. So to me, he needs to do something before he leaves office. He needs to make sure that, things that he did not do in the last 6 years, that he begin to do those things. What is that? Not just, firing them right away. I'm not in favor of just firing them right away now. You've kept them all along. You keep them and launch an investigation right now. And you investigate and you let everyone know that, this is an accusation. These guys are not indicted. It's not an indictment. They're not convicted of anything yet. But you investigate as a government. And if the result of your investigation comes back, if you're not satisfied with your investigation, you can tell the United States government that, my people are not guilty of these allegations. And hence, we're going to reciprocate. Of course, George Weah is not going to do that. He's not going to reciprocate. He's not going to sit there and say, because you sanctioned my finance minister, now I'm going to leverage some sanctions, my own sanctions, against the United States government. George Weah, that's not his style of leadership. He's not going to do that. He has gone along with everything that the Americans have asked him to do, and then some. One of the guests, I think, Carl mentioned on the show last night. He has gone on with everything that Israel has asked him to do. Because the United States and Israel, synonymous. So everything that the United States has asked George Weah to do, he has done, and yet the United States has still gone ahead and sanctioned its key government officials. And let me tell you, Dennis, this sanction really, this is something that's very close to George Weah. What the Americans are not saying is that the president is implicated in all of this, because these are his henchmen. So if you get Koji, you get Tua, that's the president. You already took away his Minister of Presidential Affairs. That's George Weah's household. That's his political household. So this whole idea that it's not about the president, this is really about the president. So he needs to do something right now.
Thank you. Mr. Nabwe, do you think he's going to fire Tue and Koji? Why or why not?
You know, I don't think he's going to do so, Dennis. You know, when you play the Firestone clip, I wanted to ask when he said, you know, maybe he would start something and McGee would finish it. Whether he was implying that McGill was in line to take over from him, you know. I don't know whether his firing of McGill you know, was not an attempt to blunt McGill's popularity that everyone was talking about. Apparently, you know, McGill was the president, the de facto president, and I don't think he liked that. But I don't think he's going to fire Tue and Koji. I think he's afraid of them. I'm sure you've heard of talk of the president being expelled, attempts being made to expel him from the CDC. And I think he knows if you fire these people, I think they will go ahead and expel him. So I don't think he's going to do it. But if he's smart, he would do it because his legacy is on the line right now. And he himself, as Mr. Sherry is indicating, I think this president is not out of the woods. I mean, people get sanctioned even when they're out of government. I think he himself, somewhere I've heard that he's having problem accessing some of his funds, you know, in the States or wherever. So I think he himself, he has to be careful so that he doesn't, you know, he doesn't get sanctioned. Now, you wanted to know how Boakai is going to deal with this. That is another thing we're waiting to see because Boakai has right in his own office Prince Johnson, who was sanctioned, and these are the people who helped this president come to power. Is he going to sanction? Is he going? What is he going to do with Prince Johnson? Is he going to prosecute? Of course, he can fire Prince Johnson, but how he's going to deal with people in his government who may, and it's not just the Weah people who will get sanctioned. I believe there might be people coming into the Boakai government who, if they're not careful, will get sanctioned too. So we'll see how he's going to deal with that too.
And don't forget his vice presidential candidate, Nukwe, has been sanctioned.
Yeah, exactly. His former vice presidential candidate. That's correct.
And Nukwe was head of Ways and Means, his current vice president, but also around Ways and Means. So this Ways and Means is, we don't know. We
don't know. And for all intent and purposes, is current president pro tem, you know, until I guess the new elections are held. So when these people get sanctioned, the government is supposed to prosecute. President Weah handled the thing badly. He did not investigate. He fired the three people at first. Now he's having second thoughts about how to deal with it. So will the incoming president investigate these people? Will he call for the findings to be presented to the Liberian government so that they can take action? Because these people are being accused of thievery. They're being accused of corruption, of taking Liberian people's resources that don't belong to them. So is he going to go after these people? You know, we're waiting to see.
Yeah, we are waiting to see if he will. Evans doesn't believe. He said time is out, so he's lame duck. But we wait to see. Let me tell you that Focus on Liberia has put together, you know, a package for the incoming government. We have a series called "Moving Liberia Forward." This week, I think it was Monday, we had the energy sector moving Liberia forward using energy and electricity, and it was beautiful. But we are not going to stop. We're not going to stop there. Tomorrow, moving the country forward, and we're going to be looking at transport. The transport ministry, that's huge. And who else would do that? The former Assistant Minister of Transport, Republic of Liberia, called Weah, will be here to tell us how we can improve the transport sector to move Liberia forward.
Okay.
It's coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Then on Sunday, Madam Elaine Saba, an educator and curriculum specialist, she's right now in Liberia. She goes there every time training, will be telling us how we can use education, especially K through 12 education, to move the country forward. It's coming up on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You don't want to miss it. And we continue. We have our scientists. We have all the. I mean, if I have to form of government in Liberia, it's not even going to give me a hard time. Everybody's right here at Focus on Liberia. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get our callers. So don't you go away.
Hi, my name is Addie Tyler from Pennsylvania, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
Keep watching Focus on Liberia for the very best. Today, and I like what we do here, right? Today, someone was asking me because Tua mentioned the ArcelorMittal deal, right? And someone was asking me about the agreements. I was able to share with them a video. We've done an interview on the MDA, and he was blown away. He said, "Wow!" I said, "Yes, we cover everything. That's what we do." Let me bring in our callers here. The first caller is Mr. Flomo Livingston. Flomo, you're alive.
Yeah, great show. I don't know. Alvin Murray said, the president is a lame dog, so there's no point of firing Tua and Koji. But the president was able to fire the commerce minister, and I don't know why they say the lame dog. He just fired them few weeks ago. So what's the difference? Look, JMB presidency will be different, and for us, we'll be accountable. Every decision he made, and we want those guys that their name was called on session to be prosecuted. Let them take them to court. Let them clear their name. If they find them guilty, they serve the time. If they don't find them guilty, then they can move on with their life. They're going to audit all the ongoing government, and those who all are coming into work, they should declare their assets before taking into office, before even working in the incoming government. That's what I'm wishing for. And the session is not only for the outgoing government. I keep saying it. The incoming government too is a lesson for them to learn. That when you come there and do the same, you'll be session and you'll face the same consequence as what the other guys are going through. Because this country need to move forward. Then JMB tomorrow will be in Rhode Island here. You'll be meeting citizens. Everybody's welcome. I thought Focus on Liberia know about it. Other media personnel will be there.
Mr. Boakai have done very well to avoid Focus on Liberia. We have done everything we could to invite him. He never came. But so I would be surprised if. Excuse me.
He'll be Rhode Island here. He'll be Rhode Island.
Yeah,
he'll be meeting citizens. There'll be media personnel there.
Okay, I will send some reporters and to answer questions from Focus on Liberia.
I thought you knew about it. It'll be crowded. It'll be crowded tomorrow because people coming from other states to come. And from there, he'll be going to Washington D.C. to meet other officials and stuff. So people who follow JMB will know all that, what's going on and stuff like that. Right. And the transitional team yesterday addressed the nation. They'll be meeting again next week, Wednesday. And Monday they'll be meeting the inaugural team will be meeting on Monday. They addressed all that yesterday.
Thank you.
We watch it. So they are talking. It's just like they won't be talking every day and stuff like that.
Thank you. We're just from a president who didn't talk to us, so we just get nervous very easily. Mr. Madison Kemu.
Hey, Mr. Dennis, how you doing, sir?
Excellent. And by the way, Flomo, if you want us to go there, I think we got to do a GoFundMe for the CEO. Go ahead, Madison.
Hey, I want to say hi to all the panelists, especially Mr. Sherry. I've been following for a long time. I love your analysis. Keep it up. Thank you. To my brother Elvis, Mr. Weah will not smell it like doing presidency again. That's a little joke for you, my brother. But here's the issue from my end. Mr. Dennis, the first time that Mr. Weah showed that you're going to be a field president was within the first 6 months of his presidency. If everyone can recall, the moment he took office, the first thing he did, he started building houses for himself. I supported Weah in Liberia for 2014 until I tried the United States. 2017, I supported him. But the moment that brother started that project, I knew you were heading for danger. Because I was like, there is a man who have gone around the world. He has tasted things. Well, why would you be thinking about breaking down his home, even building his home at this time? Why would you be thinking like that? Then the next step he did, he started flying private jets. I'm like, really? This guy came to a country that is poor, became president, he's flying private jets around the world. Who will go beg people to help you when you wear Rolex watch, flying private jets around? Who will help you, Mr. President? So I knew that Mr. Weah was heading for disaster. it was not surprising for me. And somebody was talking about he didn't bring up the expertise, the intelligence, and so forth. Mr. Weah, like I said in the comment, came to loot. So he had no interest in bringing anybody competing around him. He surrounded himself with people who they all had the same like mind to loot, and loot. That was all. And like you say, in one country, I mean, the farming season, when the parent cutting the tree or felling the tree down, he normally use the smaller one around the bigger tree. They clear all the one. That's why America do right now. They have clear all the smaller trees around the big one. And the big one is Mr. Weah. And lastly, before I leave the land, Mr. Weah's legacy is full of corruption, incompetency, lack of inclusion, and he was very, very insensitive to the Liberian crowd. If you never listen to the people around him, people who in the country who have expertise on things, but the common people are calling based on the radio, complaining to him, but he says, yes, to everybody. That will be a legacy. And I pray that Mr. Weah never come close to our presidency. And I hope this will serve Joseph Newman Boakai as a lesson that he will learn from us. We will not give up on him. Just have to support Weah, and we supported him to be president now. We will do everything in our power to pull him out of office too. If you do the same thing we are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our last caller here is Collie. Go ahead, Collie, you are live. Collie Siata.
Yeah, good evening to the panelists, to my brothers. Good show, man. So you see, the part about it, it's like we all just need to pray.
Pray?
Yeah, we all need to just pray for the nation.
Somebody told me prayers don't move God, right? Because everything is set into motion, right?
We all gotta be hopeful and just pray to God.
Okay.
For the leadership of this nation. Everybody that will be in position of government, we just pray that God will lead them to do the right thing.
Amen.
Because from the position we see, the president-elect is making, it's just quite different, contrary. Because we see him after the election. Who he came to? He came to the United States and visited a criminal, somebody who is indicted. That the man you are talking about, he came, he's not talking to you people, he's talking to a criminal, that the man he's sitting with and discussing issues. And we're talking about conflict of interest. Those people he got people that he will put in government that he will have interest in. We all know that. We are level-headed, we're seeing how things unfolding. And then the next thing is like, even with regarding the indictment we're talking about. Accusation is not a crime until proven in the court of law. So we saw Nelson Mandela, right? When Nelson Mandela, when did he come out of the terrorist watch list? 2008. Okay? So we have all those things that are going on. Nelson Mandela was indicted too, right? So, we all need to pray for the nation on other issues. But our president-elect decision on what he's doing, nothing fall in line that you can see and say, yeah, this is the man decision that he take. It's right. Everything is just contrary. But we just pray that God will lead, our people.
So Mr. Colley, what do you think Weah will be remembered for? What do you think Weah will be remembered for as his legacy?
Well, he has done a lot of good things. The peace that he kept for our nation, which is great. We did all our thing, but at least there was nothing like fighting our people live in peace. Everything was not, like milk and honey, but at least the peace that he kept was fine.
Right. All right. Thank you so much.
That's the thing we pray for.
Thank you.
We want peace in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. They say, when monkey in the tree and trying to get down, you always try to get down through the shortest route that is closer to the ground, right? So so the shortest route to the ground for President Weah is peace. Oh, he kept the peace. I mean, they're busting people here on Somalia Drive. What peace is that? People go to vote. They just burn the homes of the Grand Judah senator. What peace is that?
Yeah.
Or we talking war? I mean, what we saw in Foya? What kind of peace is that?
Right.
A guy ran through, Unity Party headquarters, with car, knocking down people like trees. What kind of peace is that?
All the missing auditors,
Right. What peace did they enjoy? Anyway,
Yeah.
I also want to announce that tomorrow, or this Sunday, we're going to continue our series, Hello, Pastor. This time, we're going to have Reverend Emmanuel Conley. I call him Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Conley. We at FOL confer on him the honorary doctorate degree. We're going to be talking about Christmas. This is the Christmas season. So we're going to be talking about Christmas. Is the celebration of Christmas biblical? And all the things that we've been hearing about Christmas, we're going to be doing that. So join us this Sunday at 7 p.m. with Reverend Emmanuel Conley for Hello, Pastor. You don't want to miss that.
Will you be playing a role as bishop?
No, I'll be hosting the pastor.
They'll be giving out that sermon. I don't know the byways and highways.
Bishop. All right.
All right.
Bishop God.
You heard our callers. It's time for us to draw down the curtains. Evans, let me get your response to the callers.
Yes, I mean, I think Mr. Madison Camus said that President Weah would never come back anywhere close to the presidency. Don't be so sure. You never know. I think, Flomo Livingstone is a diehard Joseph Boakai supporter. And he said the place is going to be packed tomorrow. I don't know if he's sure if Joseph Boakai will even show up, because I think the other program they have for him in Philadelphia, he didn't show up. So maybe he may not show up. He may send somebody to represent him. And from my understanding, I don't even know if this is a quote unquote official visit of Boakai. He came to visit family and to thank supporters. So I don't know if he came with his entire team that would prepare him for these kind of occasions, but it is what it is. Lastly, when people talk about, the small tree and the big tree and then they're coming for Weah, look, Charles Taylor was sanctioned. The last president we had that was sanctioned was Charles Taylor. He was sanctioned. He was a warlord. People would sanction him because of what he did in Sierra Leone. And some of his government officials were sanctioned. The likes of, Ures and other people were sanctioned. And Ures were able to get off the sanction list.
Yeah.
So some of these guys can prove the case. I think
what does that mean? Mean they will sanction Weah and you will get up? What are you trying to do here?
No, what I'm saying is that people are trying to say that George Weah is
it's not a big deal.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people are.
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
No, people are saying that because officials within his government are being sanctioned, it means that George Weah will be sanctioned next. And the point that I'm trying to make is that people say George Weah did this, he stole that, but it's not true. It's not true. Look, if anybody have built a house before, you know that when you're building a home, it takes months of planning in advance. The blueprints, the site, you're doing the feasibility studies of building a house. Just quickly. Let me just finish on that point. George Weah came into office, I think that the very next couple of months within his presidency, these homes were being constructed. So it wasn't just once he got into the presidency, more than likely it was something that was in the works before he even got, elected. So it's not because he came into office and then he stole all the money and then he started building his house. That's not how it works. It was many months pre-planned. So I think people need to understand
that's your assumption. Because he has not.
It's an assumption that he took the country's money to build a house. He was a sitting senator who was serving
now with another assumption.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Mr. Jha. People are making assumptions, and their assumption is skewed against the president rather than giving him the benefit of the doubt. The fact is, this man was working. People in that country who are senators can build mansions. It was George Weah as a whole who was getting all kinds of favor and was getting well paid in the country. So this whole perception that he was broke, he couldn't build one zinc shop, let alone build, those condominiums, it's not true. He had money. He could have built it before, and he did it. But lastly, I want to give a shout out to, since we have Mr. Namwe on the show, I want to give a shout out to Darlington Namwe, who is a great footballer, perhaps the second best footballer ever come out of Liberia. I'm going to say it because this guy has won 4 MLS championships. He's a prolific footballer. His father, Joe Namwe, was a great footballer as well. I don't know if Mr. Namwe is related to the Namwe. I know all the crew and Gribble people like the Namwe name, but I don't know if he's related to them. I think their crew, he's Gribble. But he's a great footballer, and I think he needs to be recognized for his great sportsmanship and his.
How do you know Victor is crew?
No, I didn't say he's crew. I said the crew and Gribble people. I know Mr. Namwe is from Maryland, so presumably he might be Gribble or crew.
No, yeah, no. Joe is from Barobo. His mom is right here in Newark.
That's the everything with the letter F.
Kind of relationship.
All right.
Yes, that's right.
I want you to conclude on.
So Joe is.
Yeah, Mr. Namwe, I want us to conclude with this. You know, President, we are coming to the United States most of the time. Have you seen President? We are coming here and meeting Liberians. Most of the time was sedition, right? And during Ellen time, where most of the time they were coming and having these town hall meetings, and they were. I mean, I've been to a couple of them. Or the late Harold Greaves will have one. Amara Connor will have one. Dr. Famule will have one, and all kinds of town hall meetings. And but when President Weah comes, I don't know. There's something new, and I don't know what we will see with Mr. Boakai. We don't even see this coming and organizing like a town hall or some meeting of Liberia. It was always sedition. Evans, I know you follow the president too, but Mr. Namwe, is my assertion correct? I think that was one of the bad things that he did, right? Everything was sedition, and I know my man, I call him Casino, they will organize the troops, they will go meet the president and all that. What was that all about, Mr. Namwe?
Yeah, I don't know, Dennis. That's part of the problem with the outgoing government. It's very difficult to understand the rationale for some of the things they did. But yes, you're right. Almost all the time the president came here, he will have these exclusive meetings with seditions. I don't know why, but those are the meetings, the town halls, where people go to meet their president. And some very, well-meaning people, they engage with the government, not only with the president, but with the president delegation. That's how some of these people get invited back home to go and help and contribute to the economy. Some of these people are business people. Some of these people are very rich Liberians here. There are Liberians here who are billionaires. They have money. But the president, he was just in that exclusive CDC club. I don't know, Dennis, but yeah, we long for those town hall meetings to meet with our president and delegation and talk to them. And some of the guys in the government are our friends. Sometimes you even just want to hang out. But they were so cocooned, they were so, I don't know. But yeah. So hopefully this incoming president, he spends a lot of time in Rhode Island, I have to say. I don't know what is in Rhode Island, but hopefully he will be a president, like he said in the past few days, that he will be president for everybody. We're hoping that he will be president for all Liberians.
Mr. Sherry, you think President Boakai will be different? He will be with Unity Party and all the auxiliaries and leave us out.
I hope not. I hope not. Now, George Weah, when George Weah was not president, right? You heard a lot of stories, good stories about him. I heard a story. One time I was somewhere in New York. I think it was in Staten Island. He paid for a friend's wedding, a guy he knew, and he paid for this guy's wedding. These are the kind of things that he used to do. And so when he became president, so he ran the presidency like a friendship club. So it was, when he came to the United States, it was, those who love me, those my friends. you know, it was far different from that. So he couldn't detach himself from the friendship versus professional, you know, versus the presidency. The presidency is serious business. It's not friendship anymore. But he couldn't draw the line, and that's, you know, that's part of his downfall, because now people that he brought around him weren't advising him well, weren't telling him the truth.
Let me hear what Ever say on this one.
So he didn't bring enough people around that were experts that we're talking about now. And so I will hope that Boakai doesn't, you know, doesn't turn along those same lines.
Well, exactly that. That's what Boyka does. And then, Mr. Jai, I know you don't like water.
Let's talk about Weah first. Leave Boakai
No. I just want to draw some I want to draw some parallels, because most people may not know about this. And there's been people from especially Lofa County who have been complaining that there is a Kisi organization here. And this happened way back when Boyka was vice president. They always organize, you know, his reception for Joseph Boyka. Every time he came, he would go to that reception as organized by the quote unquote the Gisi organization in the Americas, and they hosted him. And the same thing with most of these things, that when Boyka came here, even when he was running for president, most of his visit was organized and held by unit.
He will not buy you, maybe.
Right. So the point that we're trying to make is that it's not unusual for politicians to go where they feel most comfortable.
No, what I mean
So
is, Mr.
Weah
did not meet with us. It was always sedition. Well, why was that?
And that, you know, again, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but it was, most of these quote unquote town halls was not organized by the government. It was organized by supporters of the president, and then who invited him to some of these, you know, town halls. So I think if it had been the other way around, you probably argue, well, the government should be the one setting up the town hall and not the other way around. But if other well-meaning Liberians who perhaps had different, you know, political ideologies and wanted to host the president, they could have, you know, organized something and invited him. And if he refused or declined the invitation, then you say, well, he doesn't want to meet with us. But go ahead.
I'm a community leader here, and we used to get those things when people are coming, not just the president, but even the ministers. Mr. Sharif in Philadelphia, where there were countless town hall meetings.
Yeah.
So people, you know, they would tell us, like one
well,
time.
You said government officials, not the president, right?
That's what I'm saying. Both.
Right. So presidents, they're on a different level. These government officials can do the town hall. The Americans did a couple, I think, here in Minnesota and other places. Right. You know, other government official may do it, but not the president himself or herself.
Government official, you remember?
Ellen Johnson had a lot of town hall meetings here in the States.
She did.
Did the president ever come to Atlanta, Georgia? There, Mr. John. I don't know if he ever visited. I think most of his visit was in New York.
I'm talking about Weah. Let's lower it down to the officials. Have you heard of any of those officials having town halls in this place?
No, we don't see a lot of officials having town halls. No. But Twelve did come. Not 12, but McGill did come and visited Eula, and you know, and held a series of meetings. I think in the East Coast there, and he made some contributions and so forth.
No. McGill came. He was invited by Eula to launch a fundraiser right there.
Right.
Okay? So he didn't have a town hall.
But that was an engagement. You know, it doesn't have to be a quote unquote town hall. It's engagement with the diaspora population, right?
Not really. He was launching. I was in the hall, right, where he promised. In fact, his gesture maybe destroy Eula. But that's another story.
Let me say that we're talking about what, right? Give us a
but there's something to look at. I mean, how can we have a government?
To Elvis' point, then is prior to the launch of the official program, he had a tete-a-tete in the lobby of the hotel that he was. I forgot the name of the hotel, somewhere on Industrial Highway. You know, and we met with him.
Right, the officials, because your wife was the secretary, so the official, in a closed door meeting.
Okay, no,
And
that's true. That's
and they were
true.
not all Seditians, right? A lot of the ULA people are not Seditians. Some of them are Unity Party
No,
people.
He was
no,
invited on the
not
program
necessarily
and he
sedition.
came. So
You're right. It was not an open. It was not an open town hall meeting. You're right.
yeah. But anyway, but thank you guys for tonight. Let us go around the
So,
horn for your conclusion. I know that,
all right.
and these are some of the things, right? Because the diaspora population, especially Eula, I mean, that's what everyone worked with, and I was in those circles, so I know. But with President Weah for 6 years, not even the officials, what I tried to do at Focus on Liberia was, hey, when these guys come, because when Tua came, Tua will go to a partisan station. I mean, some of the people that they will sit with to talk, I mean, can't even, the barely spoke English, right?
No, Mr. John.
So what I tried to do was, let's organize a general press, meeting with all these platforms. Let's come together and host the president. It never worked.
They were not
Because
interested. They were not
no,
interested
they
in
were never
leadership.
interested.
They were
In
not
fact,
interested.
those partisan platforms, they say, hey, this is our guy. We can't get him over. So this is one of the issue that dogged the presidency. And I hope
Yeah,
President Boakai is not going to do the same. Let
it's
me
not
get
gonna do that.
that way.
Let me go first, Dennis, because my
Yeah,
internet is becoming a little unstable here.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you guys don't mind.
Let's get your closing
Okay.
that way.
Okay. Well, thank you again. As always, I think this was a great discussion. We started with the legacies, of the outgoing president and what we think the incoming president, is gonna do. And I always emphasize that Liberia belongs to all of us. If the president succeeds, Liberia succeeds. If the president fails, Liberia fails. This president came in and he said no Liberian will be a spectator, right, to their own government in their own economy. But look what we've had. We ended up being spectators. I just hope this incoming president, the late George Herbert Walker Bush, I think he was the one Bush said, "Read my lips." So this incoming president made some promises. No car will be stuck in the mud after X number of days. So we hope that his people, by telling us to temper our expectations, they're not telling us that they're about to renege on their promises. Our people are very patient. They will cut you a slack if they see you making attempts to deliver. But if they begin to come in here and give us attitude, they will have a rough landing, because we're not going to sit anymore and allow any group of people to take our country down the drain, because when they do, we all suffer. So we wish this incoming person all the best. We're here to give advice in whichever way they have to be susceptible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jai, for the show. It's always great being on. Quickly, I just want to, say this to the outgoing We Are government. Hindsight is always 2020. You can see things clearer when you look back. And I think some of the reasons why President Weah didn't get reelected may have been one of the things that you brought up: the lack of town halls, the lack of engagement, especially within the
Come
diaspora.
on, man. What's up?
You know,
You just calling me. I
so
told you I was going to. Sorry. Yeah.
I think we got to mute Mr. Namu
Hi.
back.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I think some of the clear missteps that the CDC government made that led to their ultimate downfall politically. Joseph Boakai can learn from him. He should be more engaging. I don't think he's going to run for a second term, but to leave the Unity Party as a political institution in a good place when he leaves, he has to not make the same mistakes that President Weah made. He has to be more engaging. He has to be more unifying. And I think as a man of wisdom, perhaps he would do that. If he has the energy or not, and the agility to want to do those things, it's left to be seen. But overall, I just want people to know, although I support President Weah on this platform, I'm out of campaign mode. I'm out of the staunchly supporting the president. It's now time to move on. And I don't want people to be tying my feet to everything they say we are. Whatever think about it, whatever think about it, it's just going to be a rigmarole. So I'm looking forward to moving on and being more balanced in my analysis and giving some insightful analysis on the platform. Thank you for having me on, and good night to the other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif.
That is just before Mr. Sherry, I think I said susceptible to advice. I meant amenable. So I like to make that correction. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That, the PRC, no, the progressive English.
Yeah, that grammar to English.
Sometimes when you're on the platform and you're talking, right? Sometimes you say some things, and when you watch the replay, so oh no, I didn't mean this. I meant the other way. Like one time I was saying the instead of saying the public sector is not where you go to enrich yourself, it should be the private sector. Then I twisted it the other way around. So those things happen. So I think that Mr. Boakai should be the antithesis of what is going on now. His pathway is really clear. Just be the opposite of George Weah, and you'll be okay. We've talked about that right now, about who you appoint. And first of all, look, people that you appoint have to be committed to serving their country. That begins with coming to work on time. Okay, I don't need you sitting there to know your colleagues. Sit there for 3 months to get acquainted. There's such a time in Liberia where you can sit down in your office to get acquainted before you start the real work. I mean, in the United States, we don't do that over here. I mean, you get to work and you start work. So why is it that every time that we go home, by the time you get to JFK, by the time you get to Central Monrovia, everything that you did in the United States stays in the United States? That's gone. We shouldn't do that. So this government should hold those that are appointed, the appointees, accountable. It starts with coming to work on time, keeping your work area clean, making sure that appointments are real appointments, making sure that you go to work. If work time is 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever it is, that you're not cheating the government. Because one of the things that I have heard is that people barely come to work and they get paid. Some people go home to lunch and they never came back to work till the next day. We can't have that. So little things like that. And then you go down to how we litter our streets. Every time you eat out something, you throw it, so the street is your trash. I mean, so there has to be a new mentality. So the government, Mr. Boakai, has to come in to change everything to be the antithesis. And lastly, Dennis, something that we haven't talked about in a while. The city mayor is not the trash man of Monrovia. The city mayor shouldn't be going around picking up trash, everywhere. There should be city policy. So it's not a job of the mayor to be picking up trash every time you turn around. Oh, this part of the city is dirty, so we're going to go down and clean the city. We're going to go over here and clean the city. That's not policy. There has to be real policy, not just in Monrovia, but also in Banga, in Saninkoli, in Harper, in Greenville, in Vojema, everywhere. There has to be a policy that's applicable to all of our cities and towns and villages, if I might add.
Right.
Thank you, and thank you to all of us, to everybody.
Thank you, and also you're naming cities and you forgot Dodweken, but yeah, we need to say one city mayor has been there, I think, since 2000, and he's still.
Is Doroki a city or a town or a village?
Dennis is a city, so we're going to take Dennis as word.
What no Greenville?
All right, but you can hold me responsible for what you don't know. I gotta.
Hey, you guys produce a vice president, so you guys are pretty important, right?
Right, and you'll see more. You'll see more than that. I just got I was talking about our friend, the minister, and someone told me that she works in the Ellen government. She worked there, but he didn't say, in which capacity. So I just wanted to put it out there.
But Dennis, here's the thing now. So even if the minister is not, the minister is not calling on you, you're not doing. I mean, like, can you yourself do something? I mean, you don't never hear these people. Like,
no.
What is going on?
And the next thing is that's why for city mayor, we have some Liberians who are city mayors, like Mayor Collins in Montana. We have the former mayor in Brooklyn Center.
Mm-hmm. Brooklyn Park.
Brooklyn Park, yeah. I sometimes
Brooklyn Center, Elliott.
Elliott from Brooklyn Center, and then we have the council from Brooklyn Park.
Yeah.
Winfred Russell. These people are able to manage our city. I've talked to them, and they can do something, right? So we should be looking in that direction now. And
right.
I don't know if Winfred can. If we can step up our cities, I want to see Winfred managing
No. Let Elliott manage Monrovia. But the thing about management, Mr. Jack, quickly, it's not just about managing. It's about money.
I said I'm looking forward when Winfred managing Harper. Because when I'm superintendent in Sino, these are the people I want to work with.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you, Dennis, will you give Dwalu, our former colleague, a role in a city like Monrovia? He has some ideas.
In the sanitation, porta parties.
Yeah, he has good idea on business,
Yeah, the man looking for business opportunity. I don't know if he really is a servant of the people.
We need something. We need something like that. We need.
Mr. Dwalu has some good ideas.
There was another guy on FOL who knows something about sewage management. I think what's his name? I forgot his name now. But we have talents around here. I mean, there are a lot of talents.
We do. Well, we want to end here. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I want to thank our viewers for always watching Focus on Liberia, even those who will watch later. Thank you very much. At this time, we end with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.